Welcome back. Today we're going to build a battle bus from the video game Fortnite. If you're new to Fortnite, the Battle Royale multiplayer portion is completely free and available on PC, Mac, PS4, Xbox One, and mobile. Basically, you compete solo or with up to 3 friends against a total of 100 players. The game begins as you drop out of the battle bus to any location on the map. You start off with only the skin on your back and your trusty pickaxe. It's a free-for-all as players find weapons and materials to stay alive, outgun, outbuild, and outwit each other. All while a deadly storm is closing in, forcing everyone closer and closer together until there is only one person or team alive, which results in the Victory Royale. So without further ado, let's build that glorious chariot of death we like to call the Battle Bus. Okay, let's build a happy little battle bus here. Start off with a little square. Yeah, just pull that out. And maybe pull out a little ledge here for Mr. Squirrel to rest his nuts on. There. We'll be going really fast through the 3D modeling. It took maybe 3 weeks to model the whole thing, and quite frankly, I didn't record the whole thing, and it'd be really boring if I did. With any 3D model, it's important to have good reference material. As you can see, I found some diagrams of a bus and placed them in the viewport backgrounds as a guide. For this model, I'm making it specifically for 3D printing, so as I'm building it, I'm being constantly aware of how it will slice up later and fit on the print bed. Most of the detail will need to be facing up, and I'm also breaking up parts along natural seams so that they can be as hidden as possible later when I glue them together. "3D modeling for printing is actually a little more forgiving than other types of modeling. You don't have to worry about topology or polygon count. You really just have to make sure that you maintain a clean, watertight mesh, which means just making sure that all the polygons connect to each other and there are no stray points or holes in the geometry. The modeling process can be a bit tedious, but it's mostly just the same thing over and over, extruding, beveling, and moving points around to slowly create more detail. Well, it took some doing, but we now have a fully modeled battle bus. Here's how I sliced it up for printing. For this particular part, I decided to send it to Shapeways to have printed and frosted extreme detail resin. And it turned out pretty nice. So now that I have everything printed out, I'll just take a little look at it and start to glue it together. I'm using just regular 5-minute epoxy. It works really well with PLA. As you can see here, the front of the bus perfectly hides those seams. And the bottom detail hides that center seam. And the same thing with the back. I printed the hose with some support, which is really easy to clean up, and it's going to be pointed downwards anyway, so it'll be hidden. Here we have the main body of the bus all glued in place. It's time to lay down a little bit of primer and start to paint this. While that's drying, I'm going to go ahead and glue together some of these smaller parts with some CA. I was happy to find out that I measured correctly and everything seemed to fit together really well. So I went ahead and test fitted a few parts just to see how they'd look. Since I made the balloon in two parts, I made a little flange just to help secure those together. As you can see, I painted the inside white. Modeling in general requires a little cleanup and filling, and 3D printing is no exception. That very first layer usually lays down a little bit extra material, which causes these seams. After those get taken care of, it's time to put some putty on. And most putties shrink a little bit, so this is a process that you have to do a few times. Here you see a little bit of a printing problem, which was completely my fault. I probably could have just increased the filament flow rate or maybe just added a couple of extra solid layers to fill in those gaps. But it's nothing little putty and filing can't take care of. With putty, I usually just like to use my fingers, but on these smaller areas you can use a toothpick, a knife, your cat, just whatever you happen to have laying around. Like I said, you usually have to go back and forth a few times. I'm going to brush off the dust and give it a coat of primer, but first I need to glue on a couple more details. With a primer, it's really easy to spot the areas you need to work on more. I'm going to use just regular gloss spray paint on some of these parts here. On the balloon, it's not hard to see that I need to do a little bit more work. Before I paint the bus blue, I'm going to lay a foundation of white. When I'm airbrushing, I always find that using several light coats works much better than one heavy coat. I'm just going to use blue straight out of the bottle because I like it, and I'll have to do several coats of this, and I don't want to have to worry about mixing it. After a few coats of blue, I'm going to seal it with a few coats of gloss. As the gloss coats build up, it's going to help hide some of those imperfections. Now it's time to paint some of these details. I tried out this Vallejo metal color and I really liked it, but I didn't exactly like the color, so I went back and repainted it a little bit later. So here we have the base coats on just about all the parts. Next, it's time to do some brush painting. Now it's time to paint a whole bunch of windows, and it would have been really smart to paint before I put down the gloss coat, but this seemed to work fine anyway. Now it's time to add some details and color variation. Regular old Sharpie works pretty well sometimes too. Anytime you add paint to the model, you need to follow it up with some type of coating. I'm just using some more of that gloss. It's time to paint the balloon, but first I need to mask it. I use just regular spray paint for this. Somewhere down the line I broke off a piece of that weather vane, but the generous people at Shapeways were nice enough to sell me a couple new ones. Now it's time to work on the bottom of the bus, so I'm just laying down some black primer. Now it's time to finally start putting this together. I had a hard time showing this part on camera. It fit well, but it was kind of hard to hold. Now I'm painting the blue flame, and that will later receive several coats of gloss as well. I painted black first on this because the lower areas are black and it's a little easier to paint the high areas. The yellow on black here took 3 or 4 coats. Here's my trusty marker again. Adding a few rivet details with some silver and a toothpick. I'm going to be using some panel line accent color to start doing some weathering and also to put a little contrast on some of those areas that would collect dirt and grime. The model still has that gloss coat, so this just flows on really well. And anything you don't like, you can wipe off or use some Tamiya X20 thinner. Anytime you're gluing, be sure and scrape off the paint so you're getting plastic on plastic. Now that this is all shiny and new, we're going to dull it down with some satin varnish and then come back and do a little bit more weathering. To start with, I'm going to be using some Tamiya Weathering Master. And this is just kind of enamel-based pigments. It's kind of like putting makeup on, to be honest. I'll add a little brown around the tires where it would have kicked up some mud, and you can use the brush side to kind of smooth it out. With the brush, I'm just adding in some further details. Using a fine hair brush, I'm just adding in some rust. I'll accent it also with a little bit of a darker color. Now it's time to put that top thing on. I couldn't really do it on camera. I'm using some core electrical wire here because it holds its shape. For the rigging, I bought some stranded metal cable, and that was really hard to show on camera. I needed all 4 hands to get that on there, so sorry about that. Cut that off there, and looks like we have ourselves a finished battle bus. Thank you for watching. Be sure and check out some of my other videos, and don't forget to subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please leave me a like. If you want to build your own battle bus, mine is available for free at Penshape and Thingiverse. I'll post links in the description.